where you're from and make sure our chat's working properly. But in the meantime, what I'm interested in doing is telling you 7 keys on how to develop a good writer. So this is especially for homeschoolers, but it works kind of for anyone because it's humans. And what I want to do is actually just explain to you how these ingredients work together. So hang in there with me. Number one, not the first key exactly, but I want you to know that part of my real goal is to get you to feel good about your child learning and especially writing. I'm wanting you to see your student feel good about writing. So I don't want to underplay that. I want you to move to where, however you feel, bad, confused, frustrated, whatever, I want to move you from feeling however you feel to feeling better. That'd be the idea. And it works like this. There's a relationship, and this would be key one, between hope and faith. Okay. So I want you to start with hope, and I want to get you to faith. Now, here's how it works. Hope is about something being possible. It's not about being guaranteed, it's about being possible. And when we have hope, we think something's possible and it's good. A good thing is possible. So weave through here is starting with building hope in your ability to set up a game so your child can learn to be a good writer. That in time can move to faith. So faith is when you're assured. It's a kind of knowing that you're very confident that it's guaranteed that it's going to turn out well. And that's where I would be. I'd be at a place if, excuse me, I'm teaching kids that I'm totally confident, totally sure that I can teach them to write. And the reason I say that is because I have a lot of experience. I'm going to show you this, a lot of experience with it. And I've got 5 kids that were homeschooled, and all of them are really excellent writers, every one of them. So, I mean, I don't always like what they write, but they do a good job at it. Uh, and really they're doing great. So understand it's a move from hope to faith. And you need to start where you are. So if you're hopeless, we need to get you to hope. And if you have hope, we want to get you to faith. Key number 2. You want to prove it and improve it. I'm sorry, I got to back up. Key number 2 is you need a plan. Scratch that one. You need a plan. And the plan is about hope. It's the hope phase. So a plan that you can do. In other words, a plan that you can follow. If you set up a plan or strategy that you can't follow or won't follow or no, you won't, it doesn't build hope. So your plan needs to be something that you can do. And the other side of it is that it will work. You think it's possible you can do it, and you think it's possible that following this plan will work. So that's key number 2. Key number 3, now to it, is prove it and improve it. This is the faith stage. So what you want to do is you want to prove to yourself that this works. And to do that, you have to do the experiment. You have to try it and then evaluate it, because that's the proving game. You can't, before an experiment, know it's going to turn out. Otherwise, you got something else going on. So, you're a theoretician or something, but that's not good science. It's not even particularly wise. If you run an experiment, you want to find out, does it work? But when it does work, it tends to build your confidence. It moves you to faith. And bear in mind, confidence, confide, with faith. We're talking about the same type of stuff. So you want to prove it and then improve it. So it's an orientation of constantly proving what's going on and then figuring out, can I make it better? Is there a way to make it better? And that usually is incremental, small pieces. So key 3 is prove it and improve it. Key 4 is you want to see writing as an integrated skill. This is something we don't stress much in our homeschooling world, a little more in those who have used Robinson curriculum, but uh, it's an integrated skill. And here's what I mean. There are basically three things that go into the skill of writing. And the three things are these: it's reading, and it's math, and it's communication. But I want to refine those. So it's reading, and it's math slash logic. And then on communication, let's say it's persuasion slash communication. So it's an integrated skill. You need reading and math slash logic to become a good writer, in combination with communication, which is what it's actually practicing. So let me explain this. So if you can't read, you're not going to understand writing. And the more you read, and the more your child reads, and the more exposure to good literature, the more it will influence their understanding of language, which means it will, I mean, more on an intuitive level, but it will help them become excellent writers. So reading is a huge element in this. Math is too. So math is really where we're learning a lot of the logic. Now, you don't actually have to learn math, but you do have to learn to think critically, or to be logical, or make sense of things. Let's just keep it at that level. Math requires you to do that. It requires correct answers. It requires doing it right. It requires showing your work, or I hope you make them show their work. And it, in combination then with persuasion slash communication, all comes together for writing. And I say persuasion because, especially when they get to essays, I'd say when they're 14-ish, essays are about sharing your own opinion, and you want to do it in a convincing way. And all writing has got to be convincing, whether it's a novel, is it convincing? Is the storyline convincing? Is this hero convincing? Is the way they write convincing that that's actually, a world or a picture, something that you can imagine? So it's always involved in the process. It's communication. In fact, all communication technically is persuasion, in my understanding. But these things are together because persuasion is about getting you to basically agree with me, assuming I agree with me. So, I mean, I could persuade somebody. You can do a magic trick and persuade them that you got a coin out of the air or something like that. That'd be more of a trick. But what we're talking about in this process of really growing good writers is that combination of learning to read and getting better at reading, and math, logic, reasoning, making sense of things, in combination with learning how to communicate and persuade. Those things all come together in writing. That's why writing is a lot harder than math. Math isn't hard. I mean, honestly, what makes math hard for your student is the introduction of new stuff every day. So literally, if you did the exact same math your child did over and over, in no time they would be bored. I mean, advanced math may be different, but not really. It would just be boring because there would be nothing new. They'd get it. And so that's the game. What we're doing, what we're busy with, is introducing new things. So that makes it have the appearance of hard. But writing, while we always started the day with writing and conquering one hard thing that day, writing, you're making hundreds of decisions almost automatically, but you're still very busy with it. And you're trying to invent and create something new. It's not just a right answer, it's an expression of yourself, your own voice, your own thinking, your own understanding of words, which comes from reading. So that's intimate to the whole thing. Also, let me just stress this. Grammar, punctuation, etc., really grows out of reading good literature and a lot of reading. It also comes out of interaction, conversation at home, etc. So if we talk wrong, they'll write wrong. So we want to talk correctly, and we want to correct things, and get in that, prove it and improve it game. But you've got to see writing as an integrated skill. It's not its own thing. It's this combination. And it requires all of those things. The fifth key is practice is everything. Practice is everything. And what I mean by that is the principle is actually you do and then you learn. We, for some reason, want to learn before we do. I don't know where we got that. Maybe it's a way to have an excuse. I don't know. But it's doing and then learning. So, for example, swimming. You can't really learn swimming, like download it from the Matrix or look, get it explained on a whiteboard or something, and you know how to swim. In order to swim, you have to get in the water and you have to work with it. My grandmother used to say, or my dad said, my grandmother said, uh, that he couldn't go swim until he knew how. And, there's a joke in there. But actually, that's the problem. You've got to do something to learn it. So if you're going to learn to read, you've got to read. And you got to read more. You got to read more, and you got to read more advanced stuff. That's the way it goes. And if you want to learn to do math, you've got to do math in order to learn math. For some reason, our kids get confused on this and they're frustrated because they don't know how to do something. And the point is exactly, you've got to do it to learn it. That would be a good thing to stress to them, that you need to do it to learn it. Same with writing, same with reading, same with anything, tying knots, it doesn't matter. So understand that practice is everything. And I'm going to argue in writing, it's daily. I don't mean you don't have breaks or take, day of rest or whatever. But I'm saying it's this daily ongoing thing that gets it down to the skill level, because that's what you want. You want it to become automatic. Same with math, same with reading, where they own it as a skill. And writing can become that kind of skill too, but they need to be writing some every day. Number 6, key number 6, use the okay to better principle. So the principle is we want to go from okay to better. That's it. We don't want to start at better, but we don't want to start at best. In fact, I wrote out here antidote for perfection. And that's right. You can't start with perfect. There's not a way to do it. And so this is the antidote. You want to go from okay to better. Okay to better. In our writing course, we talk about you want them to write, okay, get some help, and then make it great. Same idea. So what we're trying to do is get them to start with okay. So an okay sentence, right? It's not a novel. It's an okay sentence. And then we want to get better. A little more okay sentences, or a lot of okay sentences, or a number of them. So that principle 6 is the antidote for perfection, and it's to move from okay to better. So recognize wherever your kids are, that's where they are. And that's okay. That's where they are. They can't be smarter than they are. They can't know what they don't know. So it's that game. You start with okay, and it's okay to start with okay. We just want to get better. So next week, or are we better this week than we were last week? So it's an ongoing improvement. It's a consistent type of improving, and you want to drive that into your thinking, into the souls of your children. And then the seventh key to growing a good writer is, and this might be a little strange, but I want to stress it. It's to win by losing. So it's a bit of a paradox in a way, but you want to, as a teacher, mom, dad, etc., you want to win by losing. And what I mean by that is that long term, you want them to be smarter than you, better than you at writing, at math, at reading, and more educated than you are. The long term for our kids needs to be that they excel or exceed us. And a lot of times we don't have that. I had that challenge with my dad. My dad, no matter what I did, he could do it better. And I'm sure I'm sure somewhere in there he was trying to get me to improve, but he also, by showing me a standard or possibility, but he was also a bit of a narcissist. So it, it was about whatever was going on, he could do it better. And there's a place at which your kids can go past you. They can do better. And you want that. You want them to be a better person, more educated, a better contributor, etc., than you are. And especially if you're great, you want them to be greater. And having that posture and that vision, I would argue, is really strategic and key. And a lot of times our insecurities have us messed up. And I'm inviting you to change your philosophy if you don't have that, your understanding that your goal is to get them to become self-taught, self-learners. And as they go through life, they have permission. You might even say it. You have permission to be better at math than I am, to be better at reading than I am, to be better at writing than I am. Some of those areas it'll be easy, but all of our kids got to where, when they were doing calculus, we didn't do calculus. Never, I studied pre-calculus, but I couldn't do it. I didn't practice it. They exceeded me, and that was awesome because that's the game. So those are the 7 keys, I would say. And it all comes down to practicing daily. It comes down to reading. I mean, excuse me, it comes down to writing. And the way I would say it is the writing that they want to do every day doesn't matter. What they make up, stories describing a pickle jar. I don't know, look outside and write something. Write one sentence and then write it 10 different ways. As long as they're engaged in the doing, they're going to be able to learn because they're naturally wired for it. I know they say that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. You can have 1 year of practice. I mean, you can be a teacher. I remember this for 20 years, but it might just be 1 year, 20 times over that you never improved. What's different about language is that there's a built-in dynamic in the human hardwiring where we will kind of constantly improve because the feedback itself is going to take care of that. So that daily writing, some is good, more is better. Let's start with okay. You did 5 minutes, okay. We'll see if we can, get to 8 minutes next week. But it's that okay to better principle that really is in play here, but it's got to be practiced because they're not going to learn without doing. It doesn't work that way. We learn in the doing process. So those are the principles. You need to move from hope to faith. You get hope by having a plan that makes sense. You grow faith by proving it to yourself that as you watch and you see it works, you're going to be golden, and they will too. It'll prove it to them, and then you improve it. Key 4, see it as an integrated skill. It's all of those things: communication/persuasion. It's math, logic, and it's reading. Number 5, practice everything. Excuse me, practice is everything you do to learn, as we stressed. Key 6, use the okay to better principle. And I would add in there, this is valuable to keep records because, and keep their writing too, put in notebooks or something, because going back and looking at it kind of tells you, oh yeah, look where I was to where I am. It really can show progress, and it can remind you about things about yourself. It's kind of like a photo album. Occasionally, Jody, all the kids like to look at photo albums. I'm not much on them, but when I do look at them, I go, oh yeah, we had fun. Oh, we did some good things. Oh yeah, that was a good moment. So keeping those records is key on that key number 6. And key number 7, win by losing. Really get focused that you want your kids to excel beyond you and give them permission to do it. Okay, so there's that. Tell me if you would type in the chat, make sure you can hear me well. I should have checked on that sooner. Tell me where you're from. And Jody will be coming in here even as we speak. And I'll see if I can get to the chat. There we go. So here's Jody.
Guys and gals and folks.
I'll check that in just a second to make sure I've got it exactly right. So what we're looking for is questions certainly about any of that. And also any questions, homeschooling, parenting, motivation. I don't know. I know a good bit about fishing too, if you have a fishing question, but it's not quite on topic. So I was taught that the Lord doesn't count the days against you spent fishing. So I did a fair bit of that. So I was just then explaining to them all about writing and how to do it.
Nice.
So do you think you could, if you had kids again, do you think you could teach them to write?
Yes.
Even if I wasn't around?
Yes, because I have your course.
Well, I was explaining them, they don't actually need the course. All our course does is makes it incredibly easier for you and gives you a lot of details because you listen to the course, they fill in the blanks, it has lessons for them. Then they start practicing every day. They get the principles down, go through the course again. Our kids went through it probably 4 times or so. Later on, the next, yearly or something, because each time through, it's going to feel or be different, basically.
Yes, for real.
So there's the process. Yeah, let me get you in it. And let's see what kind of questions pop up.
It's also an interesting color that I'm wearing a yellow sweater, but it looks green to me on that swim. But whatever. It's fine.
I'd love to help you.
There we go.
I don't know how. Okay, so going to very quickly do folk things. Some more yellow? You like that? Okay. See if that works. All right. So what kind of questions are on your mind? Or what kind of things have you run into this week that you want to explain to people?
Oh, golly. Should think a little bit more about that ahead of time, I think.
I usually ask you that every week. I mean, what do you run into with moms? What do you think about over your, experience in life? People really like to hear from you, obviously practical things, but I'd say in particular, things you bumped into a lot that once you help someone get a point, they got better, they got easier. Like, even your struggles early on, you were worried about would the kids turn out okay, et cetera. And I was just talking about this, but as you continue to go through it, mature, and you can start seeing how the kids are doing compared to their peer group, or how kids are doing compared to public or private mass ed. As you saw that over time, your confidence.
Oh yeah.
changed.
If I was doing this again, or maybe, yeah, if I was doing this again, I would be a lot more chilled about it all. And just that if you are promoting self-learners and you're focusing on the basics, they are going to do fine. They really are. And I also would have disciplinary issues. I would have handled differently, and some just quicker, just kind of nip it in the bud type thing. Moms tend to let things go on, I think, and for too long sometimes. And that's just really more stressful on everybody.
Yep. Sorry for being out of the picture,
Fred's
but
got something going on with the microphone.
well, yeah, it just fell. So.
But it'd be like this. We would be, especially when the kids were really little, I might, giving them a million warnings that day or whatever, maybe even anyway, Fred would come home and just deal with it. And I'm like, oh, well, I wish I had been just dealt with it 3 hours ago.
Well, my job was to be the main person.
But it just was like, yeah, and then the kids, they got, okay, ooh, can't do that anymore. And then they're fine and they're happy and they're on to something else. I don't know if that's making any sense, but to anybody, but I hope it is, because it was a thing. And I think it's a thing with women, especially. And really, if the kids, it just gets back to that thing. If they
So let me ask you, why would you be more chilled now?
Well, I'd be more chill now because it worked. I don't know, I can
So,
my confidence was built.
right. So you know it works.
Yes.
There's another piece to it, and that is that you understand the theory, the idea, the strategy, and it makes sense too. Part of the reason, if it made sense before, you'd have been fine. But it didn't quite make sense to you because I'm going to pick on you.
No,
You were coming out of your master's degree in education, and you had the assumption that children needed to be taught in order to learn, which what else would you tell a teacher? If you get trained in sales, you think you have to sell it. If you could learn, no, you're just causing them to buy, or maybe you learn that they need to sell themselves. And really all you're doing is helping them sell themselves. That could be a big mind shift in the game. And I think that's what we all face, what we certainly face, so that we don't have a good strategy that makes sense. And that's what we need up front for hope. And then as we do it and it proves it, then we build true faith or confidence. I talked about those two things. Right
yeah,
then.
that is for sure. I did struggle quite a while with just that they can teach themselves. And you know what, really, one of the times for the beginning of me really nailing this down is I am not a math person. I probably, could have put more effort in it, done better, whatever. I don't know. But when they passed me in their math very early on in their little lives, I couldn't help them without a lot of hassle. And they
You
just
mean
did it.
you couldn't have helped them without having to go learn the math
Yeah.
in order to help them? And
Right.
a lot of these moms do that. They're very busy trying to learn everything more than the kids. So you didn't see what I did with the 7 keys.
Mm.
The last one was win by losing. And it's
Okay.
about you want them that they're smarter, better, and more educated than you eventually. You want
Yes.
them to exceed you. And
Yes.
that actually builds the confidence, because then oh my gosh, they can teach themselves anything. I'm off the hook.
Yeah.
So that's why you're the chief learning officer. And what you're doing is you're trying to cause learning. You're not trying to do the teaching. And the causing learning a lot of has to do with setting up a good game plan, basically, for them.
For sure. Yeah, we've run across different moms that read every book before their kid and just do every lesson before they're doing school and then doing school with their children. And
Yeah.
I don't know how they pull that
I
off,
mean,
but
that's a good thing about homeschooling anyway, even the way we did it. There is co-learning, so parents get to keep learning. And I resonate with that. I think that's a valuable piece to it. However, the assumption that your kids can't exceed you and they have to be taught and they can't know unless they're taught actually is incredibly crippling, quite frankly. So let me read some of these things here that were posted. Carrie says, just want to say thank you for these Friday lives. Appreciate the
Thanks.
encouragement. This is like 38 of them. So I've got to start pulling out some pieces and posting them. So, highlight reels. Zeta then says, yep, a lot of information to make homeschooling a little easier. And that's our goal, except I probably want it to be a lot easier. But a little is good, and we'll just keep improving as the principle goes. It is making sense. Good. So also sustainable motherhood. Also, I'm rereading the independent homeschool book and trying to adapt the principles. And I think that's, all I try to do in that book is try to share what we did, we understood, and give principles of how to do it. And again, okay, and then get better. You don't have to own it all today. So that's awesome. It's hard not to teach, because that's what we ourselves been through and what most homeschoolers do, or else get tutors, teach kids. That's true. And let's just stress it again. You're wanting to cause them to learn, so you can teach them a skill. And that's why I think education is skill based. you teach them a skill of reading, but then they can read their own stuff and learn without you. So you're in large measure setting things in motion. You are teaching or helping cause them to learn a skill like reading, and that begins to open the door. And it doesn't mean you can't coach them. And it doesn't mean you can't be wise and be a mentor and a tutor and all the things you want to do, and you can teach them principles, etc. But it's not that they're just a blank slate. They're wired for learning. And unfortunately, they get exposed to wrong things, to learn the wrong things, but they do learn them. So learning to discipline yourself and rethink it so you get out of being the teacher to this poor little blank slate child that if I don't teach them, they'll never know anything. That's not the game. What you want to do is feed them. Imagine if you had something, I'm trying to think of an analogy here, but what if you thought they actually would starve to death if you didn't both feed them and make them digest the food? Let's say both are in there. Well, that would be kind of a crazy way to think, because most humans eventually get hungry and want to eat. Very few of them, I know their disease, their syndromes and stuff, anorexia or whatever, but by and large, it's hardwired into them to eat. And when they're hungry, they'll eat. And when you're thirsty, I don't like water, but when I'm really thirsty, nothing is better than water. So rely on that design, whether you think it's nature or God, something has designed us for this learning. So all you want to do is tap into that. You don't have to be better than the person. You just cause them to learn and improve their game. Sometimes that's feedback. That's what coaches do. Do you think Tiger Woods ever had a coach that could beat him? Doesn't work that way. So she adds, by the way, Dr. Fred, my kids listened to the to-do list portion last week's live. My daughter implemented it and says it works wonderfully.
Oh,
awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. So does she struggle with ADHD, or is she just liking a refined way to focus? Is she a bit of a list person too? That'd be fun to know. And you can go back to episode 37 and see that in there. About how I talk about focus, basically. All right. So what other questions? Is there typing that up? I could ask y'all to do this, to tell me or tell us like things we've talked about that really made a difference. So that chances are there are a lot of people that would want to know about that. So if you can say, here's the thing I'm learning, or here's something we learned and we tried and it really worked well, that would be awesome if you'd list some of those things and I can just stress them. By the way, glad to answer questions about anything.
One thing that I want to free them up to think about, we talked about before, is don't if you feel like something's not working with your family, your kids, whether it's school stuff or house stuff or whatever, change it. Just warn your kids. It's like, okay, yeah, I know we've been doing this way, but we're going to try a new way. We're going to try this for a month, see if it works. And, it might be, think of something.
Well, you did it with meals. You try something new. Say, I know it's new. We're going to vote on it. We're going to try it a time or two. We're going to see if we liked it. Some things we liked, some things we didn't. But it's not a shock to them, or it doesn't need to be. And anything you change in a procedure, if you'll do that, if you'll warn them, just say, look, apologize. We're trying to improve things. We're going to try it, and we don't know if it'll work. It might make sense, hopefully. And I would get us to schedule a time in the future. Sometimes by the time we got to it, we didn't even fool with it. But, in 3 months or in a week or whatever the thing is, it needs a good chance to run the experiment. We're going to sit down and then evaluate it. But we don't rethink it every day. We're going to go ahead and do this. Yeah, I want you to write, you're going to write, let's say you're going to write 10 sentences a day. Let's say you're not even writing paragraphs early on. 10 sentences a day. That's all you have to do. 10 sentences. they can be the same sentence, but it has to have something different in it, not exactly the same, not
That's
copying.
cute. Yeah.
But you got to change
one or
something
two
in it, you
in
know.
each sentence.
I ate a giant pickle. Okay, next simple. I consumed a giant pickle. Fine. I ate a giant peach. I don't care. All those things are still the doing practice stuff. So telling them we're going to do 10 sentences, they can't be the same. It could be about anything. And we're going to see how that goes for we're going to do it for 10 days. 10 sentences, 10 days. I'm talking about a really, just getting started. Yeah. And then that we can stop and evaluate how it went. And if you keep records, like I said, and keep those writing, you can show them how they were at the beginning to where they were and go, that's amazing. Look how you've changed. And they will, it becomes very powerful when someone can realize where they were to where they've gotten to. Because most of us are comparing to perfection, and so we're always depressed. But if we look at where we were to where we got to, it's amazing. It's truly amazing. And we want to start with okay and get better, just like walking. The first time your baby falls trying to walk, you don't ridicule them. You go, good job, try again. And then they do a little more, and then they do a little more. And then eventually it gets to where stop running in the house. Right.
That's a great example. And what you're changing for your kid might be, hey, I know we're loosey-goosey around here, but we're going to tighten it up a little bit. And we're going to actually have a schedule that we're aiming at and things like that. So it could go either way.
Yeah. Schedule we're building toward.
Yeah.
Not
perfection.
No, not this week. So she added about the daughter that used the to-do list, number to-do list. No, she doesn't have ADHD, naturally motivated, but likes this structure rather than me reminding her. We recently took the kids out from our local private school and trying to get into the homeschool group. Oh, I got you. So and part of what happens, what you want and I want and Jody wants and everybody wants is some sense of control, that our actions can make a difference in what happens. And so when they get a tool even like that, she probably feels a sense of empowerment or control, that she's able to, I don't mean control a bad word, but she's able to take actions and get results. And then as she sees it works, it becomes magic, basically. I had another idea this morning. I'll tell later, but it's a next do list. I'll tell you about it later. So it's anyway, I think about these things all the time.
Well, and just the let's use the word pride she had in herself, or whatever it was that was a positive thought in her head and in her heart. I've watched so many moms do everything for their young kids or whatever age kids. I mean, like reminding them every day to brush their teeth or whatever it is. Get yourself out of that. Hand that over to them. Yes, you need to check that they did these things and that kind of thing, but you don't need, okay, now it's time we're going to bed. So what does that mean? Okay, we got to brush your teeth. And did you do this? And did you do that? And I'm not talking about toddlers or preschoolers, but
exactly,
they can do so much more and they understand so much more than us moms think they can. They really are incredible little people. And
well, and you can just think back, you were too. If you're smart enough to delegate, that's fine. And if mom will let you delegate, that's fine. But eventually you got to, I think anybody could learn to separate whites from darks, don't you think?
Yeah.
They had to learn to hit a button. I think they can learn these things. We really know this because kids that go to basic in the military apparently pretty quickly learn how to make their bed. So the problem is probably not them. The problem is probably you. And if you do for something somebody else can do for themselves, you cripple them, as we talked about recently. So Carrie throws out, we're only on year 2 of the course. And I think the most improvement has been on myself. I'm learning to relax and trust the process. And I assume you're talking about maybe the writing course. I mean, we have a bunch of courses, but the writing course, yeah. And Oh, it may be, could be Robinson, but
Anyway,
that is actually good and confirming, because that's what happens. You get enough evidence and you start getting some confidence, and then you can relax and trust the process. Like, the presidential election, people get really nervous and upset about this thing. I don't, I've been through so many of these things. I've seen ones I liked and ones I didn't like. I've seen ones I didn't like kind of do okay. I've seen ones I liked not really do that well. And it's like somehow everything keeps working. For the most part, everything works. We can still go to the grocery store and buy stuff. We can still drive places. We can still see. I mean, it's like so much of life actually is working. But if we can listen to enough media and get our imaginations fired, uh, everything's horrible. And I'm not saying they're not horrible things, but I'm saying that's not the whole story. And it's going to be the same with schooling. Once you start doing it and you start learning, you see things, they're kind of going to turn out okay, sort of no matter what you do. It's not magic. It's not guaranteed that if you didn't do it right, they'll turn out, turn into mud. They may excel you every way possible. I don't know, but you want to put the odds in their favor, and I think that's what we're exactly aiming towards.
right. I think there's those two ditches of thinking, well, if we are the perfect homeschool family and we do it all right, and then, the kids will turn out fantastically great now. Or the other ditch of, well, what can I do? I can't, I don't know what's going to happen. And, if, I don't know, there's a middle, excuse me, thing of you do what you think is right and best for your kids, and they're probably going to be fine.
Well, and let me add something to that. It's really important. I think what we tend to do is want to write rules like form, like step, 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 step. I gave you some keys. I wasn't trying to give you exact steps. And that's because what I've learned is you need to be principle focused, not rule focused. Now, I wouldn't be against rule focused if every circumstance was identical, because rules work in a context. And if you apply the rules of becoming a good swimmer, like the steps, and make those the steps to becoming a good high diver, excuse me, what do they call it when you jump out of a plane? Skydiver, excuse me, high diver. So a good skydiver, it's probably going to foul somebody up. The other way around, if you're a good skydiver, rules are, pack your chute, and I don't know what that would be in swimming, blow up your floaties. But even relying on floaties, if you do that, you don't learn to swim. Eventually you've got to learn how to swim without the floaties. So all I'm getting at is when you can look for principles like do okay and let's just get better. We're not busy comparing you to where all your classmates are in math. What math you understand, and let's get you to learn more math this week and then the next week, and continue to really learn it, not do the lessons. That principle of doing in order to learn can carry you through a lot of situations. Trying to get the rules down, not so good. It's not nothing I offer is a formula. It's a form. It's like jazz music. So there's variation in it, but it's still jazz. But it's not a formula. It's a form. It has a way of operating, but that's all principle based, at least in the definite way I think about it. What other questions or thoughts or other things that you found helpful, key insights that you could share that might be something useful for somebody else? I do appreciate the encouragement. We haven't decided to quit yet.
Yeah.
But I do want to kind of turn this into more of a podcast thing. I mean, still do this, but could put the audios out there probably might help more people reach them, etc. People that like our stuff. I didn't think to pull up my list of 100 questions that homeschoolers all have. Let's see what's in there, as someone might want to ask something. I will say this about math too, and it's becoming more obvious, especially as I watch on things like X. People from the arts consistently are the stupidest people out there. I mean, just things they say are just actually goofy. And I think part of it is because they don't have a math background. You don't have to have a math background, but what math teaches you is something's right, something's wrong. This affects that, affects that. And when you can think, critically think, understand the pieces of how something works, you tend to make sense. If you never got that down and you just think, oh, it's just make it up, it's colors on a mat and lines, and oh, it's the experience, the beauty of me making up stuff. I think that's what they wind up doing. They start literally making up their own truths. And as a result, there's a lot of striking confusion. So you're not doing your child a good service if you aren't helping them learn to be logical, understand a little about truth, false, absolute, you know, just, in some measure, that there are things that are true out there, because we live in a world that's constantly trying to drive it to where you get to make up your own truth, and that won't end well, at least in my humble opinion.
And how does that fit in with, you said, there's a right and a wrong. How does that fit in with your, when you talk to people about, hey, you need to be able to present both sides of an argument?
Oh, well, if you think something through, if you know both sides, you can be persuasive and you really understand the issue. When you only have one set of data, I was in discussion recently about someone telling me that they hated that the right was banning books. And as the discussion went on, and then as I continued to look afterwards, I think the left is banning books too, but it's not banning books. It's in schools. What books do you want in the school? And there are some that don't seem appropriate. And both sides would say that for different reasons. But that's not a banning, because you can get the books out there. But this person was not willing to engage in the debate. They literally would say, no, I know it's true. If I consider the other side, that'll be endorsing Hitler. I mean, that's a Nazi. That's about how the conversation went.
Kind of a large jump.
No, but that's how the conversation went. And it's strikingly odd, because you ought to be able to argue both sides of an issue. Goodness. I have an opinion now on teaching cursive before print to our kids. I didn't have that at one point. But I think I could give you the arguments both ways. And that's why I feel like I understand the issue a little better. But even then, it's based on a principle. You ought to understand both sides, even saying there are some good things about public education, especially if the parents are really messed up, no discipline, not around, abandoned kids. I mean, they're probably going to do a little better learn how to read, something. There's a chance there for something. Here's one. What should a typical day look like? We only got a few minutes, but I'll do my best to answer this one. Just trying to change that color. What should a typical day look like? And I would say this too goes to the point of principle. So what a typical day should look like is, I would use the word, it needs a consistent rhythm, kind of a pattern or a flow. It needs a consistent rhythm. So if you do something strikingly different every day, it'll create a good measure of chaos because most of us, we don't want to be boxed in. I get that, but we also want some regularity, some predictability, something that is kind of like the guardrails on a road. It gives you a sense of security because you understand how the game works. I mean, part of what's disorienting going to a new church or a new job or something is you don't know where the bathrooms are, you know where the coffee is. I mean, you just don't know how anything works and it's disorienting. Well, if you have a different rhythm every day, it's disorienting rather than knowing, look, here's our rhythm. We get up this way and then we approach school or house. I don't know what to do. We do this thing kind of in this pattern and then later in this pattern. And so it has a rhythm that, our kids slept through the night from 5, 6 weeks on. And it's because we worked into a rhythm. We eat, we sleep, we get up, we eat, we have your little stretching time. We might do a bath thing at this. Then we have a calming down moment and later feed, eat, rinse, wash, repeat. It's just that thing, that pattern. And when you don't do that, when you don't impose some wisdom and put a pattern or a rhythm in it, then you're caught with your kids trying to tell you the rhythm. And unfortunately, their rhythms are not going to be so productive. We're really going to eat whenever we want to, and uh, uh, play when we want to, and learn when we want to, and yell when we want to, and leave the house when we want to. None of that works well. Just like with driving a car, you eventually have to learn out there are kind of rhythms to driving a car. You stay in your lane. Yeah, you get caught at a light. You might think that's a big problem, but then over time you find out it doesn't matter if you get to that light or not. They've set up the thing so somebody way ahead of you and y'all are gonna get there close at the same time. Maybe some weird exceptions, but by and large, that's how it works. So a typical day would have a consistent rhythm to it, and then you can look at what to improve and what to do. If you're chaotic, um, you're not going to see the education and the character develop you want to. If you overimpose it and it's not a rhythm, but it's a literally every day is a paint by numbers day, and right now we're painting these numbers on the brown tree, and it's that regimented and controlled. That's going to be irritating to at least one half of the bell curve that isn't going to go with that. I don't think so. Anything
No, I
else
love it. I
about
mean,
the
that is really important. It truly is. And the chaotic, oh, I'm a free spirit and I don't want to pin my kids down. And we just want to, I'm telling you, your kids want some structure, some rhythm, and having a rhythm will free you up, free that mind space up. You don't having to make a million decisions a day. We've talked about that. And okay, so you have a free form day one day that every so often, that's great. That's a fun thing to do, but get back to that rhythm. And that's what I was saying earlier in the talk is if you are going to change something in your rhythm, give them a little heads up and
Yeah, but they get there, and our kids, vacations were always off rhythm, and they get back, and you could see our kids really liked it. They actually liked getting back. They liked their bed, their room, their sequence of activity. It was all became important to them, and so life is not simply about always doing what's fun. It also involves learning how to have fun no matter what you're doing. And that's what rhythm and discipline is really about. I'm not against fun. I'm just saying there are some fun things about just having a bedtime, getting in it, hearing the quiet of the house, hearing mom and dad talking, people cleaning, and things calming down, or maybe rain outside or crickets. And even for a child, that's a special piece of the story when they settle into it. So hope you find that helpful. All right, so I don't see any more questions, and we got 2 minutes, so I think we're golden. Patrick did throw in here structure, parameters, consistent bedtimes, provide safety, peace of mind. Yeah, exactly. He's just stressing that stuff and stuff I'm sure he's found helpful too, because it makes you less crazy. I promise you. All right, this was loads of fun. So hope you found it helpful, and this will be posted, so feel free to pass it along, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great day.